So hello there and welcome to another tutorial. My name is Tanmay Bakshi and today we're going to be going over a fascinating new topic straight from WWDC 2019 and it's called SwiftUI. Now if you watched the WWDC 2019 keynote, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the interesting things that Apple has announced. Now, there are two that are very, very important. First of all, there's the Combine framework, which now enables a whole new way of working with asynchronous operations. But that's a topic for a different video. The second one is called SwiftUI. Now, if you haven't already heard of SwiftUI, I'm sure you're going to be fascinated by it. It was the #1 thing to come out of WWDC this year. And essentially, it completely redefines the way that you define your user interfaces within iOS or Apple platforms, really. So you can use SwiftUI to create a tvOS or a watchOS, iOS, or also called iPadOS for the iPad, or macOS interface. Essentially enabling you to have one sort of style of creating an interface to reuse code across all platforms instead of having AppKit over on the Mac, having, the specialized watch kit, having iOS's UI kit, and then the separate kits for TV. Now everything is centralized. Everything is a lot easier to work with. And you might be surprised at just how simple SwiftUI makes the most tedious UI kit code. Now, let me get the terminology straight here, just in case you don't have very much experience in this field. Now, what the UI framework that iOS has been using for years at this point is called UI Kit. So if you've ever developed an iOS application before and you've used a UI button or a UI label or UI text field, you have used UI Kit. These are all parts of the UI Kit framework. And it's great. It's versatile. It enables you to achieve a lot. And used in the right way, it's very, very powerful. But there's just one problem. And that's the key phrase, if it's used in the right way. It takes a lot of experience and a lot of code just to do the simplest of things when it comes to UI Kit. But with SwiftUI, this is all taken away from the programmer. You no longer have to deal with the hassle because now SwiftUI deals with it for you. Now, what do I mean? Well, traditionally, let's just say you wanted to create an application with UI Kit, which would run on a wide variety of applications, including any iPhone device after, say, the iPhone 6, and from there, work on iPads as well. You would have to use auto layout and constraints. You would have to define quite a big portion of your UI in code if you wanted it to be complex. You couldn't do everything in storyboards. And at the same time, it would also be a little complex to determine how exactly your view is going to look before you run the application. There's basically no way to determine that unless you run the app, get over to that view, and then finally take a look at, oh, this is what my application looks like. These are all problems that are solved by SwiftUI. How? Well, it's actually doing this by removing the how. So let me explain what that means. Traditionally with UI Kit, what you're telling the framework to do is exactly how you want to get to your final user interface. So you're telling it, create this label, apply these constraints, add it to the view, do this, you're giving it a bunch of steps as to how to create an interface. But the thing is, any framework that we've had as developers where you have to actually manually describe the how has traditionally been replaced. Not very many people use the actual manual URL requests, you just use a Lamifier. And so similarly, Apple wanted to create a very similar paradigm in the world of UI development. And so now, instead of telling UIKit, these are the steps you need to go through in order to develop the UI, you're now telling SwiftUI, this is what I want my interface to look like. I want it to have this stack over here of elements, I want it to have a button over here, etc., etc. And just like that, SwiftUI will understand what you want, and it will create that interface for you. You don't need to tell it how, you just need to tell it what. This adds a lot more work on Apple's side. In fact, this has been in development for over 10 years, even before Swift was created, or even before Swift entered development. But the thing is, it takes so much hassle off of the programmer that it is absolutely amazing. So another thing that SwiftUI does is that it moves away from the how to the what, and at the same time it moves over to a reactive programming paradigm. What that means is your view is going to react to changes in the source of truth for those views. So let's just say you're developing a simple application to do movie recommendation. Now let's just say there's a brand new recommendation that just came in for this user. Now, traditionally what you would do with UIKit is you would grab that new recommendation, you would append it to some sort of movies array, and then you would refresh your table view manually saying, hey, there's new data you need to refresh now. And then what you would do is you would have UIKit take a look at how many elements there are in the array, what the height of each cell needs to be, creating a prototype cell, manually defining that prototype cell in the storyboard or even in your code, and then finally having your cell displayed on screen. All of that is removed with SwiftUI. All you need to do is have your structure, which defines your view. And this also brings me to another change. You're no longer going to use UI views, you're going to use just regular views. And this time, it's not a class or a structure, the view is a protocol. And so now there's no inheritance stuff you need to deal with, you just need to make your structure conform to the view protocol. And so the advantage of having this and having a structure that conforms to that view protocol is that whenever a state variable is modified within that structure, your view will automatically reload for you. Now, think about it. When you've got a structure in Swift, you cannot normally mutate variables or things within that struct. It doesn't work that way. That's the main advantage of a structure versus a class, a value type versus a reference type. But then when it comes to views in SwiftUI, what you can do is you can actually mark certain variables as state variables. So for example, remember that movies array I was talking about? Well, let's just say a new recommendation came in and you append it to your movies array. Well, if you tell Swift that this is a state variable, it'll know that the content of this variable is fundamentally linked to the way that your view works or looks. And so, right as it changes, it'll automatically refresh your view, and it'll do so so quickly that your user can continuously interact with that view. And so that is the power of SwiftUI. Now, I know just talking about it might not sound all that great, but today I want to actually build an application with you from scratch. The only thing that I've built is the back end, and I'm going to be building the whole front end with you in SwiftUI. The idea is this. What if I can train a machine learning algorithm using Create, which is also Apple's machine learning framework for Python, and create a movie recommendation system. Now, you may have already seen my tutorial on training this and using UIKit. This was actually a code pattern for IBM. So if you'd like to check that out, there will be a link in the description. I do highly recommend that you check it out, but if you don't, here is a quick and brief description. Now, there's a data set called the MovieLens dataset. In this case, we're using the 27 million version of that. So we've got around 27 million, okay, so 27 million movies on our device. I mean, of course, not the actual movie files, but we've got 27 million movies with their IMDb ID, TMDb ID, and so IMDb and TMDb are different movie databases. TMDb provides an API, and I've also got information about these movies. And I've also got information about users, which movies they watched, and on a scale of 0 to 5 in 0.5 increments, how much they rated. So for example, you could have a 3.5 rating, you could have a 2.5 rating, you could have a 4-star rating, these sorts of ratings. So we've got all these ratings, and by using Create, I'm training a machine learning model that automatically analyzes all of these ratings, and it will generate predictions as to what movies you should watch based off of the movies you've already rated. And so the idea of the application is to use this core ML model using what Create has actually created for us and use it within the iOS application, within SwiftUI, in order to allow the user to automatically do this sort of movie recommendation. And so that is what we're going to be building today. When the user opens up the application, they're going to see a list of the movies they've already rated. And at the same time, there will be a little bar on the top where they can click and search for new movies. On the bottom, there will be a recommend button that they can click and take a look at new movies that Create and the machine learning model thinks that they they should watch. Something to note, the individual cells within the list will contain an image of the cover of the movie, will contain the user's rating in visual form, and the movie's title in scrollable form. So if it's too large to fit the display, you'll be able to scroll across and take a look at the whole title. Sounds complex, but SwiftUI makes it really, really simple. So let's take a look first at a demo of the application in action, and then let's get into the code. Alright, so before we get into the code, let's take a look at a demo of the application in action. Now, on my phone over here, you can see that I've got the application open. Now, right as I turn it on, it shows me a list of the movies that I've already rated. Now, on the left, you can see the cover of the movie. This is all downloaded in real time from the TMDB API. And, of course, you can see my rating as indicated by the 5 squares. Wherever it's golden or yellow, that is the rating that I've provided. Wherever it's gray, that's stuff that I haven't filled out. So, for example, Monsters, Inc. is 3 stars. Everything else here is all 5 stars. Now, there's actually quite a bit of functionality that goes into this application. So, for example, let's just say I wanted to find out more about Toy Story. All I need to do is click on that cell, and it takes me over to a detailed view where I can take a look at my rating, the cover of the book, the title, and of course a description of the movie itself. Now, if I go back, you can see that there's this little magic move transition that the word movies does. So watch this. As I move my finger back, what's happening is the word movies is actually transitioning on the top left from being this sort of back button to being the title of the view. That is something that SwiftUI does completely automatically for you. It's really quite amazing. Now, let's just say I wanted to delete my rating on a certain movie, say Monsters, Inc. All I need to do is long press on the rating, and just like that, it's all grayed out. There's no longer a rating that I've provided. So if I refresh the view, it actually goes ahead and clears that out from my favorites, or the ones at least that I've rated. Now, let's just say there's a movie that I want to look for in order to rate it. Well, all I need to do is type in the search bar the name of the movie. Say I want to search for Shrek. So I'm going to type in Shrek, click on Enter, and in just a moment, it'll search through 27 million movies on the device, and there we go. We see the only movie it gets is Shrek, and that's the one we want. If I want, I can click on it and take a look at some information, and I can even rate it directly from this detail view. I just click on the stars that I want to give it, and I can go back. If I refresh, I can see that Shrek should now be in the movies that I've rated. So now that I've given the application some data, how about we go ahead and get some recommendations. So if I click the recommend button on the very bottom of the screen, we should see in just a moment that it comes back to me with a bunch of movies that it believes I would be interested in seeing. So give it just a moment. It's going to take all the movies that I've already fed in. It's going to convert them into a list of movie IDs along with a rating that I provided. It's going to feed that into the Turing Create machine learning model. It'll take the output, it'll put it into the view, and the view will automatically refresh. Let's try that once again. I'm going to click on recommend, give that just a second, and there we go. As you can see, all the cells kind of animated, transitioned out, and a bunch of new cells came in. Look at that once more. If I close the recommendations, click on recommend, watch how the cells move away. Watch this. That is the default animation. You don't need to code anything for that smooth transition to take place. Now, as you can see, it's showing me quite a few different movies. Now, I've already watched Monsters, Inc. Wasn't too big of a fan, but it was a pretty good movie. So if I click on 3 stars, I've now provided it another rating, and now I can click on recommend once more. It'll take a look at the new ratings and provide me some more movies. And you can keep sort of going through this loop of rating movies, taking a look at recommendations, watching them, rating, and continuing that loop. And so this is how the application works. But now let's take a look at how you can actually build it. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to exit out of the application. And actually, before we exit, I think there's one more thing that you'd find pretty interesting. iOS 13, as I'm sure you've heard, has dark mode. So what I can do is swipe from the top right of my screen down, and wherever my brightness indicator is, I can force tap on that, or force tap is gone now in iOS 13, long press. And there's this appearance light button. If I click on that, it turns to dark. Now the entire iOS interface is going to be in dark mode. So if I click on the application, look at that. It automatically adjusted for dark mode. Now, this doesn't seem like much, but this is only possible because you are telling Swift what you want the UI to look like, not how you want it to get there. And because of that, Swift can actually handle basically everything when it comes to localization or dark mode versus light mode. Like, for example, take a look at the X button, the little cross beside the search bar. Right now, there is a white filled circle with a black X. Now, if I switch to light mode, look at how that symbol changes to a black circle with a white X. It doesn't, again, seem like much, but because we're using SF symbols, which are a collection of pre-built symbols in iOS, because we're using SwiftUI, this is all automatic for us. You could even, for example, use a language like Arabic that goes from right to left, and it'll automatically adjust your whole UI to work with that new language. It's really an amazing tool. So now let's take a look at how you can actually build this application. So, let's head over to the code, shall we? Alright, so now let's get into the actual code of the application. Now, when you create a new SwiftUI project, which, by the way, looks something like this, you start off by creating a new project just like you would. Let's just say it's a single view application. You're going to create your regular old product name as you would, but you're going to click on this little check mark called Use SwiftUI. That's very important, or else you're going to use UIKit. You've got to have that checked if you want a SwiftUI project. But I'm going to cancel that because I've already created the project. When you do, you should have 3 Swift files in your main directory: appdelegate.swift, scenedelegate, and contentview.swift. Content view is where you're going to be doing the majority of your work. It's where you're going to be developing your UI, and you can create more views just like you would UI views or storyboards as well. Scenedelegate is a new file. We'll talk about that in just a moment. AppDelegate is the one that you know and love. So let's start off by talking a bit more about the content view. Now, when you open up the content view, as you can see on the right of the screen, there is automatically a little phone over there displaying what you've already got as code on the left of the screen. And so you've essentially got a code version of your view on the left of the screen, and you've got an interface version of your view on the right of the screen. Now, what's so special about SwiftUI is that you can actually modify your UI both through code and through the interface. So, for example, on the top right here, say I click on this plus button, and I want to add, say, some more text to the view. I can take some text and actually drag it over down here, and it's going to go ahead and modify my code in order to actually allow for that new piece of text. Or what I can also do, let's just say I want bold text. I can command click on the text itself, scroll down to where it says, let's see here, inspect. And then from there, it's going to show me a bunch of options. Again, this is the first beta, so do expect for there to be things like graphical bugs and things like this. But then again, it will show you a bunch of options as to things like font weight, size, and much more. So if I were to say, move over just to code, then possibly the inspector will work. No, unfortunately it doesn't. Again, first beta, things like this are going to happen in Xcode, but towards the Golden Master and September, we should see more of these bugs getting fixed. And I mean, if you think about it, there were actually quite a few bugs in SwiftUI that prevented me from creating this application, but there are also workarounds and sometimes even more efficient ways of doing things that the bugs force you to find. And we'll be getting to that in just a moment. So, as I mentioned, you're going to have a live preview on the right of the screen. Sometimes, though, if you make a change in your code that requires a rebuild of the product, it's going to pause that automatic updating preview. So there's a little resume on the top right, but there's a little resume button on the top right that you can just click. It'll rebuild and show you that that preview. Now, again, as I was saying, this is a live preview. So if I were to change my code, like for example, hello world, this is Tanmay, you can see the live preview changes in real time, and there's also an option to run this live preview directly on your device, so you can actually use that device and interact in real time. So that is how these previews work. It's really interesting. You should definitely take a look. Now, SwiftUI is compositional. So, for example, let's just say I wanted this text to be bold. All I would need to do is add .bold. And just like that, it should go ahead and bold that text for me in the automatic updating preview. Just like that, I can do lots of other things. Like, for example, I can set the I can actually set the line limit to nothing, so we can have as many lines as we want. So, for example, if I were to put a line break in between the two things, it would automatically go ahead between the two pieces of text. It would automatically create those two lines, and I can even set the multi-line text alignment to center, and there we go, it centers the text. This is all happening live. This is a compositional interface, which I'm sure you have used in the past. Makes UI development super, super simple. So now let's take a look at how you can actually use this to develop a more complex movie recommendation application. Now, when I went over to my files, I'm sure you noticed that there are, like, see here, 7 new files that you will not already have when you create your application. These are all files that you can download from a GitHub repository that I've already set up for you down in the description below. Now, let me explain what these are. First of all, you've got the librecommender.dylib file. This is essentially to recreate having all their custom recommender functions and utilities inside of a little framework that you can use. Unfortunately, this is not a fat binary. This is not using bitcode, and therefore you're not going to be able to have one file that works on ARM as well as x86, meaning on Mac and iOS simulator as well as iDevices like your phone and your iPad. You're going to need separate frameworks. So that's why this application currently does not run on the simulator. It will only run on the phone, but it's an active issue that the TuriCreate team is working on fixing. I've also got the actual machine learning model called movierec.ml model. This is around 56.8 megabytes. Unfortunately, this cannot be brought down via pruning. This is a recommender model, not a neural network model, so it cannot be. But it's actually a very, very simple interface. You're basically just giving it a dictionary of movie ID as the key, and the value is the rating on a scale of 0 to 5 with 0.5 increments. And it's going to give you another dictionary providing the movie ID and the ranking as the value of how likely it is that the user will like this movie. There's also a probabilities dictionary which provides the confidence, but I don't use that in this demo. There are also 2 more files, links.json and movies.json. Now, I would love to open them up for you, but they're huge files, and Xcode 11 crashes when you try and open them. So we're not going to open them, but if you'd like to take a look, they're available on GitHub, and you can open them up in a text editor like Vim, or Atom, or Sublime Text in order to take a look. But let me give you a quick brief. With links.json, you have got an array of dictionaries. Each dictionary contains 3 items: movie ID, TMDB ID, and IMDb ID. So it's essentially relating each movie to their respective identifiers on TMDB and IMDb, but I only use TMDB. I've also got movies.json, which is larger. In movies.json, you've got things like the title, the genres, and much more information. You can take a look at that if you would like to, but those are the only 2 JSON files we're going to be using in this application. I've also got a few Swift files. Like, for example, I've got this Levenstein.swift over here. Now, this is not my own custom implementation of the Levenstein edit distance algorithm. If you'd like to find exactly who created this, there will be a link to his GitHub gist down in the description below. So, apart from that, I've also got a constants file. Now, the user defaults in Swift, which is how the data is made persistent, is what's informally called a stringly typed API. So, I'm sure you've heard of strongly typed APIs. A spin on that name is called stringly typed APIs. So, you're using strings to call certain keys and things from the API. Now, this is not great to do. Because it's very prone to typos. You've got to type the same thing over and over again. If you replace it in one place, you've got to replace it everywhere. So that's why I've just got a structure called constants with a static variable called ratings, which refers to the actual key. So if I change it here, it'll change everywhere throughout the user defaults. And if there were more constants, I would just add them as more static variables. As a matter of fact, this could just be a constant if I wanted it to be. Apart from that, there's also the movie data provider. Now, the movie data provider is kind of where things get a little bit more complex. It uses 3 libraries. So it uses SwiftUI, it uses the brand new Combine framework, and it also uses Dynamic JSON. Dynamic JSON was installed through CocoaPods, so that's why this is actually a workspace. It's using CocoaPods. And this is the only pod that I've installed, Dynamic JSON. It makes it very, very easy to work with JSON and Swift. There's also Combine, which is, as I mentioned, a new sort of paradigm for asynchronous programming. Again, that's a topic for a different video. But then there's SwiftUI. Why do we use SwiftUI here? Well, let me explain. So the movie data provider is, let's see here, around 236 lines of code that enable me to work with those JSON files that I mentioned in a very easy way. So links and movies. Essentially, there is a movie type and there's a link type. Every movie has things like the title of the movie, the genres, and we can actually take a look. The movie contains, yes, the movie ID, title, and genres, that's all. And essentially, what happens here is the movie and the link enable me to do things like download the cover image from TMDB, or download a description of the movie, or download a poster of the movie, these sorts of things, through a very simple movie.download function. Now, the reason we're using SwiftUI in this file is because I have defined movie as something called a bindable object. I know that sounds really complex, but essentially a bindable object is a protocol. And if you want your type, or your class, or your objects, or whatever it is, to conform to the bindable object protocol, there's only one condition that you need to fulfill. You need to have a constant called didChange, and whenever the internals of this sort of object change, you've got to call that constant and say, yes, something has changed within this class. And what this is going to let Swift do is it's going to tell Swift that, hey, something changed here, so if there's any view that depends on this, refresh that view now. Okay, so let's just say we were on the movies view and some movies rating change, or the cover change, or something of that sort. Well, because it's a bindable object, it would tell SwiftUI, hey, I've changed. And then the view would be like, I depend on you. And it would go ahead and refresh the view. And so that's how that works. This uses Combine, but I'll explain exactly how that works in the next part of this series of what came out in WWDC 2019. Now, there is a lot more that goes behind here, but remember, this video is about SwiftUI, right? It's not about movie recommendation. If you want to find out more, you can take a look at my code pattern. There will be a link, as I mentioned, in the description, but this is a much more complex version of that code pattern. It's much more general, it's much more extendable, and it's much more scalable. So you can take a look at all this code, you can understand it if you'd like to, but today's topic is SwiftUI. All you need to know is that the movie and link types enable us to do things like download relevant information, take a look at movie genres, take a look at the title, read the JSON files in a very, very easy way. And there's also a special structure called a movie data provider, which actually stores all of the movies and all of the links that we have from those JSON files within itself. There is also a static variable called shared, which is its own instance. So essentially, instead of having to initialize this over and over again, and instead of having to reload the data over and over again, I just have a static shared instance of this structure that you can use, that the application uses in order to access data of the movies. So again, nothing that you really need to worry about right now, but this handles everything from movie recommendation, to movie searching, to basically everything else in terms of the data. But now let's focus on the UI, finally. I know that's something you've been waiting for. So let's start off with Content View. Now, Content View is great, but this is not, it doesn't depict what the view is going to show. It's going to be showing movies. So let's rename Content View to Movie View. I'm going to do that now. Alright, there we go. I've renamed over to Movie View. I can even rename the file. Now, one thing to note, if you build right now, you will get a build failure, because you've got to go back to the scene delegate and tell it you're no longer using a content view as your initial view, you're using a movie view. If you build now, you should see it build successfully. Now, if you'd like to bring back that live preview, click this little lines of code thing over here, and click on Editor in Canvas. And there we go, you're going to see your live preview. I'm going to hide the file so we have a bit more working space. There we go. So I am going to hide the mini map just to make this give us a little bit more space. Going to make this a little bit smaller and resume the live preview. Now, as you can see, currently the movie view only shows hello world, not very useful. Let's make that more useful. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to start off by initializing a list of movies. So the way you do this is by, first of all, having some sort of array of content to use. So in this case, we're just going to have a variable within the structure called movies, and it's going to be of type array of movie objects. And so by default, this will be equal to an empty array. I'll talk about why in just a second. Now, within the body of the actual view, what we're going to do is we're going to have a list. And so what used to be called UI table views are now lists. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to pass these movies to the list and say this is the array from which the content of the list is going to be determined. So each cell represents an individual element of this array in the same order that the array is. So the very first element in the array is the very top cell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open parentheses and pass movies to this list. And then I'm going to open a bracket, and there we go. We're inside of this closure now. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define the argument that we're taking. So remember, because this is a closure, what's happening is that every time this closure is called, it's passed a movie object. And that is an individual element from this movie's array. And so what our sort of responsibility is to return a view that represents what the cell should show for a certain movie. So let's just say we wanted each cell to show the title of a movie. Then we just return text movie.title. And just like that, in just a moment, if I were to go ahead and resume the live preview, we should see a blank list, just like that. Well, that's because we didn't give it any movies. We've got to go ahead and do that. And traditionally, this was a big problem, right? When you do storyboard development, you've got these prototype views, but you never really see what your application is going to look like. And this is a big problem that SwiftUI solves. In order to pass it some sort of data to show, all you need to do is say, over here in the preview provider, pass some movies, and let's just say we head over to the movie data provider, and we ask it for the very first movie that it has, and this happens to be Toy Story. So I'm going to go ahead and try again, have it actually compile. Oh, an unexpected error occurred. Again, very first beta of Xcode, you're going to have these bugs. But no problem. All we need to do is clean, rebuild. We should see that it builds successfully. And right as it does, we should be able to try again and see the live preview. Now again, this is going to be way more stable in the final release of Xcode 11. Let's take a look. Alright, so unfortunately, it seems that the live previews aren't cooperating with us, so what would be better is to actually run this on the simulator. Now, something to note, in the preview provider, you're actually passing the list of movies that you want it to render. So when you're running on the simulator, of course, you're not going to be using a preview provider. So you're going to go over to your scene delegate, and you're going to tell it to initialize that view with a certain array. So I'm going to pass that over, and I'm going to run this on an iPhone XS Max simulator. Let's take a look. So it's going to go ahead and run. Let's take a look at that in just a moment. Alright, so after powering through some technical difficulties with the Xcode 11 beta, with the Turi Create not working on x86, I finally found a way to get it to work. You don't need to worry about how I got it to work. We'll get to that towards the end of the tutorial because that is where machine learning comes in. Let's take a look. So, as you can see, on the right we've got our preview again. Now this preview is showing Toy Story 1995, which is the title of the very first movie in the movies array. So in the movies.json file, the movie that has the very first movie in that JSON file is Toy Story. Great. And so that's the one that pops up. Now the thing is, we don't just want to show the title, right? We want to do something more interesting. Let's just say we want to show an image of the cover of the movie. And to do this, we need to display two things side by side horizontally. We need the image, and of course we also need the text, which is the title and the rating. So what we're going to do is we're going to embed this text within what's called an H stack, a horizontal stack of views. So to do it, ultra simple. Command click on text, and click Embed in HStack. And just like that, it's in an HStack. Now there's going to be no change in the preview so far because there's nothing else in the stack, but you can put things there for sure. So what we're going to do is basically just simply put an image, and we're going to pass it a UI image of the movie's links cover image. So we're going to tell it to download the cover image. All right, give that a second, and it should update the preview. So it's actually going to get the movie. It's going to find the movie's link within the links.json file. It'll find its TMDB ID and download the cover image. So as you can see on the preview page, that doesn't look so good. It's way too big for this display. So let's go ahead and minimize that a little bit. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to do that by resizing. Now, again, because SwiftUI is compositional, it becomes a lot easier to do this. So we're going to actually define a frame for this image. We're going to tell it that the width is going to be 87 and the height is going to be 127 pixels. Now, something to note, just giving an image a frame will not actually resize it. First, you need to tell it that it is resizable. After that, you should see over there on our preview that it does go down to its requested height and width. Now, just to make it look a little bit better, again, you can adjust this to however you'd like. We can do something like providing this with a corner radius, which will essentially round the edges. Let's just say a corner radius of 10. Just like that, we should see on our preview that the corner radius becomes 10. We can see a rounded edges around the book. If you'd like, you can even give it a border, just like I did in the earlier version of the application, but there's no need to do so. If you would like to, all you need to do is just say border, color.gray, or whichever color you'd like, and the width of the border, say 5, and just like that, in our live preview, it should update to give the cover a border. Now, things have been going relatively slowly so far because we're pretty new to SwiftUI. But this is going to go a lot faster from here because now you know the fundamentals. So let's start building upon this and create a more complex UI. Now, of course, we don't want Toy Story just being there. We want it to be big. We want it to be a title. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to provide this text with a custom font. You're going to be saying font or .font in order to provide the font, .large title. And just like that, it should expand that to become a large title style font. Now, the thing is, let's just say your movie's name is a little bit too big and it doesn't fit. Of course, you don't want line wrapping just yet, but at the same time, you do not want it to say ... That's not a great user experience. So what you're going to do is you're going to embed this in what's called a scroll view, which traditionally in UIKit were painful to work with. But now, with SwiftUI, you just wrap it up in a scroll view, and just like that, you've got a little view where you can scroll across if there's something that goes outside of the view's boundaries. And when you put it in a scroll view, it also automatically goes to the top, because the scroll view is taking up the whole space that the text would have taken, and the text is going automatically to the top left of the scroll view. Now, within the scroll view, we can also do more things, or actually outside of the scroll view. Like, for example, let's just say we wanted to provide a rating. Now, think about how the rating was positioned within the application as you're seeing a screenshot of now. There is a horizontal stack of the image as well as a vertical stack, which is another element within the horizontal stack, of both the title and the rating. So what we're going to do is we're going to embed the scroll view within a V stack, a vertical stack. And so essentially this vertical stack will contain the title, and below the title it's going to contain the rating. Now we'll get to actually implementing the rating in just a second, so let's add a to-do there so we can get to that in just a moment. The reason I'm waiting is because that requires another view called the rating view that is actually its own individual view structure. We'll get to that in just a moment. So now that we've got this list, let's go ahead and actually implement the search bar functionality. Now, in order to implement that functionality, you're going to have to add a text field above the list. And in order to do that, you need to put the list inside of a vertical stack and the text field on top. So, command click on list, embed in vertical stack, and just like that, you've got your vertical stack. So what I'm going to do is actually do that manually, because currently in this beta, the indentation goes haywire when you do it automatically. So let's just do that manually, and now we've got a VStack. So on the top here, I'm going to add a text field. But the thing is, we need somewhere for the text field to actually put its information. And this is going to be in a structure, a variable within the structure, called the search term. This is going to be a string, and by default, it's going to have just an empty string value. In fact, we can just leave its type up to Swift to infer. Now, something to remember. The search term affects the way the view looks. And so what this means is that as the search term changes, the text in the text field and the movies being shown will change. That's why you need to tell SwiftUI that this is what's called a state variable. This means that it can be mutated, unlike other variables within the structure, and whenever it is updated, it will update the view as well. As a matter of fact, because the movies, of course, affect the list, you're going to define this as a state variable as well. And so there we go. You've got your two state variables. Now, for your text field, you're going to actually pass it the search term. But you cannot just type in search term. You have to put a $sign before it, meaning that this is a binding variable. We'll get into what that means in the next part of this tutorial. Now, this text field has to have some sort of placeholder text. Again, it doesn't need to have placeholder text, but it's always better to have some sort of text to tell your users what this text field is actually expecting. So to do that, all you need to do is pass it a placeholder with some text. In this case, let's just say we pass it something like movie name. Before, I had passed it something like search. Okay, there we go. Now if I click on try again and I have it update the preview, it should go ahead and show us the text field with the placeholder text, as well as the list with the cover, as well as the movie name. There we go, it shows us the text field. Now, I don't really like the way that the text field kind of sticks to the edges of the view. And so to solve this, we can use padding. So again, in a compositional manner, just say dot padding, provide it some edge insets, and we're going to say towards the top, no padding, but leading and trailing padding will be 20 pixels. You can see the preview updating, and you can see the search bar moving in by 20 pixels on the side. There we go. Now, the thing is, if you saw in the other UI, we also have to have a little X button to the right of the text field that says, yes, we're done searching now, you can refresh, go back to the favorites or back to what I've already rated. So to do that, we're gonna need a horizontal stack. So all you need to do is embed this text field within a horizontal stack. Now, as you can see, I have purposely left the padding outside of the horizontal, or outside of the text field, and now the padding is applied to the horizontal stack itself. This has an advantage. Whatever the horizontal stack has within it, it will actually pad that all to 20 pixels. So let me show you why that's useful. Let's just say we add an image, which is of course our X. This has a system name of xmark.circle.fill. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to create a horizontal stack of the text field and the little circle, the little X icon. Now, both of these will take up as much space as they're given, proportionally. Now, when you actually reduce the amount of space by including padding, both of them will move in by 20 pixels to make the whole horizontal stack 20 pixels padded. So as you can see on our UI on the right, the preview, it looks great. So now let's go ahead and make this a little bit more complex. The way we're going to do that is by actually modifying the search term based off of when you click the image. So what we're going to do is over here with the image, we're going to create this, we're going to have this thing called a tap action. So essentially, we're going to say image tap action, search term is equal to nothing. All right, so self.search term is equal to nothing. Essentially, what we just did is we told SwiftUI that right as you click on the image, right as you click on that little X, you're going to set the search term to, well, Nothing. Now, let's take a look at a demo of this in action. And you see, what's so powerful about SwiftUI is the fact that, let's just say, and this is not something you're going to need to do what I'm doing right now, give me just 1 second. There we go. Okay, yeah, so what I was saying is that SwiftUI is powerful because right here in the previews, watch this. See this little play button over here? I just click on play, and just like that, the simulator is within the preview. I can actually interact with this view just like I would within the iOS simulator. Only thing is, it doesn't do debugging within this view. So you cannot include breakpoints, you cannot print things, you can only interact with your view. As you can see, it's currently loading up this, this sort of interactive preview. And there we go. As we can see, we have the iOS simulator interface. We've got the current time, battery, and Wi-Fi. It's currently loading. Give that just a second. Alright, so because the live preview is acting a little buggy because of Xcode being in beta 1, I decided to actually launch the real simulator for you. So as you can see over here in the real simulator, let's just say I type something in like Tanmay Bakshi or Tanmay Bakshi has created this text field. Alright, I type this in, and now if I want to clear, I can click on this little button over here, and just like that, it clears out the text. The way this works is, again, search term is a state variable. When it changes, the view will refresh. When you're setting it to nothing, the view refreshes and it's like, hey, this text field shouldn't have anything in it. And you see the placeholder text, which is search, because there's nothing in the text field. And so that is how these state variables work. Now let's go ahead and actually combine this all to do something even more complex. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the simulator because we don't want it to just keep running. And now, let's go ahead and actually take a look at what happens when the user actually searches for movies. The way this is going to work is you're going to have a private function within the structure called process search. Now, the way this function is going to work is you're going to have it essentially determine whether to show the user's rated movies or to show the search term. Now, it's actually very simple logic. If the search term is nothing, meaning there is no search that they're currently conducting, then the movies is just equal to the movies that they have rated in the past, if there are any. Okay, so we're going to use the movie data provider to do this. But if there is a search term to use, then we're going to set that to, well, the movies that qualify according to that search term. So we're going to perform a search for the search term. So again, we're using the movie data provider to help us find those movies. And because movies is a state variable, right as you change the movies, the view is updated and you get your new movies in the list. So just like that, we've got our process search function. But something else to realize is that there has to be some sort of way for that function to know when to process the search. And so that's why, right after your text field, if you add a little closure and do self.processSearch, what's going to happen is, right as you click enter on your text field, so right as you click enter on your keyboard, it's going to call the process search function. And one more thing I want it to do when you do this is that I want it to hide the keyboard. Okay, so if there's a keyboard visible and you click enter, I want it to hide the keyboard automatically. I'm going to do the same thing for the image. I'm going to have it process the search, and then I'm going to have it hide the keyboard just like that. There we go. You've got your keyboard hidden. So just like that, we are actually completely done search bar functionality. It's really that simple with SwiftUI. It's almost magical how you can actually create such complex interfaces in such little effort. But there's more you can do. So again, you don't just have the movie view. You've got to have a more complex view. So when you click on a movie, you want to go to a different view that provides details about that movie. So what you're going to have to do is turn this view into a navigation view. The way you're going to do that is you're going to wrap your top level VStack inside of this navigation view. And just like that, your view now has the ability to navigate. And in order for it to navigate, there has to be a button that deals with actually moving to the next view. So to do that, you're going to actually have this list be have cells which are navigation buttons. So let me explain how this works. you're going to add a navigation button here, and its destination has to be some view. It can really be any view. It can even just be a singular piece of text, like, for example, the movie's title. And you're going to wrap the cell content within this navigation button. So you're going to wrap this H stack within the navigation button. So now this is the theory. When you click on the movie, it should just take you to a different view that shows the movie's title in the center of the screen, and you should be able to go back, and it should be able to show you the original view you were on. Now, one more thing you can do. This over here is the view that is inside of the navigation view, and you can set its navigation bar title, which was movies in the previous case. So if I go ahead and resume the automatic preview, you should see that, and of course this needs to be text actually. So if we take a look, it should show you that movies heading that we took a look at during the previous iteration. So I'm going to go ahead and let that load, and there we go. We see movies, we see search, and we see the actual movie. Now, if I were to actually go ahead and run this, we should be able to see what it looks like to actually process and be able to click, see the movie title, and go back. Let's take a look. As you can see on the simulator, I've got the interface loading up. Right as it loads up, we should see Toy Story. When you click on the Toy Story cell, it should take you to a different view, as you can see, where Toy Story is the only text, and you can head back and you can do this sort of stuff. So we're almost there, but there's a little bit more you've got to do. So from here, what we're going to do is head back over to our movie view, and we're going to take this text and we're going to extract it to its own subview. Okay, so we don't just want it to lead to a simple text field. We want it to lead, or to a label. We want it to lead to the actual detailed view of the movie, where you can take a look at the information of the movie. But before we actually talk about the navigation buttons, let's implement rating control. Now, the way rating control works is by using a custom view, and this is the view right over here. It's on the GitHub page for this project. You can take a look at it right now if you'd like to as well. So instead of actually boring you and manually coding in this whole sort of rating view, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this rating view into the code and explain how it works. So let's create a new rating view file, just like so. And what I'll do is I will paste this into the rating view. Just like that, we've got this new rating view. And what we can do with this is actually depict the ratings of movies. So we can depict 2.5 or 5 or 0 or even other ratings. So the way this works is by actually just taking any movie, and this is a state variable, so you can actually change the movie. And what it's going to do is it's going to take the rating attribute of that movie, which is the rating that the user provided, and it's going to sort of render a view that depicts that rating. The way it works is by creating a horizontal stack of 5 rectangles. Now, these aren't actually rectangles, these are squares, but squares are kind of rectangle. So what's going to happen here is we're going to have these 5 rectangles, and the color of each rectangle depends on which index the rectangle is at. So let's just say that the user's rating is 2. Then the first 2 rectangles are going to be yellow. Then the final 3 rectangles are going to be gray. If it's 2.5, then the first 2 are going to be yellow. Then there's going to be 1 rectangle, which is actually a combination of 2 rectangles, half yellow, half gray, and then there's going to be 1 more gray rectangle. And so that's essentially how the logic behind this works. It's a little bit more complex, but it's very, very straightforward code, and you'll be able to understand it based off of the tutorial that I've given you so far. So we can head back over to our movie view, and to add the rating, it's as simple as replacing the to-do with a rating view, providing it the actual movie that we're currently dealing with. So if we go ahead and continue, sort of resume our live preview, we should see that rating pop up. Now, when there's no rating provided, again, it's going to be just all gray squares. And so, again, rendering service was interrupted. Let's take a look at why that was by running it in the simulator. Perfect. So what just happened here was the fact that we did not already have the user defaults set up. In order to do so, all you need to do is call over here in our movie view, in the preview, movie data provider dot shared dot setup storage. So as long as you do this, you will be good to go when it comes to user defaults. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's take a look at our preview. We should see the gray squares depicting the fact that there is no rating currently for that movie. There we go, we see the gray squares. Now, these are currently centered, and it doesn't necessarily look the best centered, so in order to move it to the left, all you need to do is tell the VStack that's contained within to have alignment that is leading, meaning left aligned. And just like that, in our live preview, those 5 gray squares should head over to the left, just like so. Now, if we were to actually provide a rating for the movie by, say, setting its rating to rating, say, 3.5, then in the preview as well, we should actually see the 3.5 squares filling up, just like so. And so the rating view does work, and just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what's happening behind the scenes, it's rendering 1 yellow square, another yellow square, a third yellow square, then half of a yellow square and half of a gray square, and then 1 more gray square. So that's how this whole rating view works. But that's all that there is when it comes to rating. Next up is kind of like finishing off the application, applying our finishing touches to the app. And to do this, we're going to add something called a movie detail view, which is the view that you see when you actually click on the movie. So what we're going to do is head over to the GitHub page once more, and go to movie detail view. I'm going to copy this code, and I'm going to actually have it create a preview as well. And I'll talk about how that works in just a second. So I'm going to create a new file called movie detail view. And there we go. I can paste in my code. Now, the movie detail view also has its own preview. So if you'd like to take a look at it, all you need to do is open up the canvas, resume the live preview, and in just a moment, it'll render it out for you. There we go. That is a live preview of what it would look like to see Toy Story's movie detail view. Again, what I really want you to realize is that this is a huge problem that SwiftUI solves. Actually previewing your views before you run your application is something that couldn't be done with UIKit, at least not easily. But now with SwiftUI, it's as trivial as adding this little preview. So now let's head back over to the movie view. And also, before we go there, the movie detail view. The only variable that it has is the movie variable. Based off of this state variable, it'll determine everything that it needs to look, including the cover image, the description, and everything else. So let's head back over to the movie view, and over here, the navigation button, instead of heading over to text of the movie's title, we're going to head over to the movie detail view, and we're going to pass it the current movie that we're dealing with in the list closure. And so now you should be ready to run this on the simulator and actually interact with it just like you would your regular application. There's just one thing it cannot do so far. It cannot actually recommend movies, and we'll get to that in just a second. So I'm going to run the application, and what I just did here is in the scene delegate, I added the function called setup storage. So what this does is even before the window of your application is initialized, it'll initialize, the user defaults such that it already has a blank ratings dictionary so that it knows which movies you're going to rate, and it has the provision to actually store that data. So there we go. As you can see on the application, we have Toy Story. We have no rating so far because we didn't provide it with a rating. We can go inside and take a look at this detail view. I can provide it a rating by clicking on a certain value. I can go back and we see that new value. And I can even search for movies. So I could type in something like Shrek, click enter, and the theory is that it should be able to go ahead, find Shrek within all of its movies, and there we go. It shows it to us. I can give it a rating. Say I want to give it a 5-star rating. I can click on close, and there we go. We get back to our favorites. This is, again, a list. I can click and get some information about the movie. So now, let's implement the final piece of functionality, which is, of course, recommendations, the magic behind the application. So, within the VStack that contains the search bar, and that contains the list, after the list, I'm going to add a button. And the way buttons work is quite interesting. You've got two closures that it uses. It has an action and it has a label. The action is what's called when you actually click on the button. And the label is what's called to actually figure out what the button should look like. So within the button, all you're going to do is you're going to say movies is equal to movie data provider dot shared dot recommendations. And the label is going to be text recommendations, or recommend. And I think that would look best in all caps. Of course, since this is within a closure, we need to explicitly tell Swift we're talking about self when it comes to the movies variable. And if we resume the live preview, any second now, we should see that button pop up on the bottom. There we go. We see our little recommend button. But then again, there's no padding on the bottom, so let's add padding. The way you're going to do that is just by saying dot padding, edge insets, and we're going to provide it for no top, no leading, a little bit on the bottom, say 10 pixels, and no trailing. Again, it's gonna update the preview automatically, so if there's more or less padding required, we can change that instantly without having to wait. I think that's a good amount. I think we'll still go with 20 just to be on the safe side. There we go. It's nice and clickable, and it won't interrupt with your swiping. There we go. So now that we've got the recommend button, let's actually go ahead and test it out. Now, again, it won't work on the simulator. This is going to have to run on a real device. So what I'm going to do is open up QuickTime Player so you can actually take a look at my phone. Now in QuickTime Player, I'm going to go ahead and show you my phone. There we go, you can see my phone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell Swift over here that I do want to provide recommendations because now I'm running on a real iOS device. So unfortunately, because of the fact that Turi Create does not run both on the simulator and on the device, if you do not comment out all the machine learning code from your data provider, then you're not going to be able to use the live previews, and you're not going to be able to use what's this? This is the old version of the application. Oh, there we go. We get the new version. You're also not going to be able to run the iOS simulator. But there we go. We see our movies. Now, one thing to note again is that in the scene delegate, we have hard-coded for it to show Toy Story in the beginning. Let's go ahead and remove that because, of course, not everyone's going to like Toy Story. And let's also head back over to our movie view and set the default values for the movies array to all the movies that the user has already rated. Now, by default, this should be, we're going to let this refresh. As you can see, by default, it's blank because so far we haven't rated anything. But if I go ahead, pick up my phone, search up, say, Toy Story. I'm actually doing this in real time. I click on enter. You can actually see this changing on screen. It should go ahead and search up Toy Story throughout its vast database, shows us all the movies. We can click on one to see the detail view, head back right over if we want to. I'm going to rate these all 5 stars. I'm going to also search for, say, Shrek. Okay, click enter. Give that just a second. It's going to show us Shrek. Going to rate that, say, 4 stars. Again, we can even take a look at a detailed view. Let's head back over to our favorites. And let's click on the recommend button to take a look at the movies that Turi Create thinks we should take a look at. These are all the movies that it thinks we'd like. Again, I can go ahead and provide some more ratings over here, like, for example, these ratings here. Now, I can click on recommend once more, and it'll go ahead and change my recommendations. Did you see that? Did you see how the cells actually moved on their own and animated in such a smooth way instead of snapping like a UI table view would have done? That is the power of SwiftUI in action. Again, you can just keep doing this. I click on recommend again. Watch what happens to The Incredibles. It slides out and Harry Potter slides right in. That is amazing. These are all default things. We did not code this in. And just like that, if you click on the X button again, you're going to see your favorites. So, or whatever you rated at least. And so that was an example of how you can create a movie recommendation application within SwiftUI. Now, I did not cover the movie data provider. I did not cover the way the data is loaded. I did not cover actually quite a bit of the back-end functionality, but I did cover a lot on SwiftUI. And as you've seen, creating such a complex interface in UIKit would have required much, much more code. And I'm not talking just about what we did. I'm talking about what SwiftUI did. I mean, take a look once again at the application. All right? This is running in dark mode. Just like this, I switch over to light mode, and there we go. We are in light mode, and the application looks just like normal. And there we go. We can see all of our cells, and it animates nicely as well. So we can even scroll. Actually, this is one thing I didn't show you. We can actually scroll through these titles if they're larger than the actual width of the screen or what's available to the cell. And so this is just one example of how you can use SwiftUI to create a complex interface. We did work, SwiftUI did a lot of work for us, and that is how you can use SwiftUI to create complex interfaces to create a movie recommendation application. Again, all links will be in the description below. GitHub, the link to the Levenstein Git gist, the link to my earlier video on Turi Create and creating a movie recommendation system. That was a code pattern as well. And that was what I had for this tutorial. I do hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how you can use Apple's brand new magical SwiftUI framework. If you did, please do make sure to leave a like down below. Apart from that, if you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, I'd love to hear it, and I would love to answer your queries down below in the comments section on my Twitter or on my email as well. Apart from that, if you really do enjoy my content and you do want to see more of it, please do make sure to subscribe, as it really does help out a lot. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I do release new content, feel free to click on the bell icon as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in today once again. Goodbye.